Football arrived in Uruguay in the 1880s, carried across the Atlantic by British sailors and merchants who docked at Montevideo's busy port. The game spread quickly through the capital, finding eager players among local workers and students who adapted it as their own almost immediately. By the turn of the 20th century, organized clubs had already taken root along the Rio de la Plata. The Asociación Uruguaya de Fútbol was founded in 1900, making it one of the oldest football associations in the Americas. Club Nacional de Fútbol and Club Atlético Peñarol, originally founded as the Central Uruguay Railway Cricket Club, emerged as the two great rivals that would define Uruguayan football culture for generations. Their derby, known as the Clásico, became more than sport. It mapped the social and cultural identity of the entire country. Uruguay dominated South American football in the early decades of the 20th century, winning the Copa América, then called the Campeonato Sudamericano, multiple times in the 1910s and 1920s. The national team, wearing their sky blue shirts and earning the nickname La Celeste, developed a fluid technical style that set them apart from more physically oriented European approaches. Football was becoming the lens through which Uruguayans understood themselves as a nation. The 1924 Paris Olympics gave Uruguay its first global stage, and the team stunned European audiences with victories that felt, to many observers, almost implausible. They won gold again at the 1928 Amsterdam Olympics, cementing a reputation that made the world take notice. These were not exhibitions. They were declarations that a small South American republic could stand at the very summit of the world game. When FIFA organized the first World Cup in 1930, Uruguay was chosen as host, partly in recognition of its Olympic achievements and partly to mark the country's centenary of independence. 13 nations made the journey to Montevideo, and in the final, Uruguay defeated Argentina 4-2 in front of a packed Estadio Centenario. The trophy and the date were braided together forever in Uruguayan national memory. The decades that followed brought political turbulence and economic strain to Uruguay, yet football remained a constant source of national cohesion. Then came 1950 and the Maracanazo in Rio de Janeiro, the match Uruguayans call the Maracanazo. Facing Brazil in the decisive game of the World Cup, before a crowd of roughly 200,000, Uruguay came from behind to win 2-1, silencing one of the largest gatherings ever to watch a sporting event and claiming their second world title. Uruguay produced players who became genuinely global figures. Obdulio Varela, the captain of 1950, embodied quiet defiance. Later generations celebrated Enzo Francescoli, whose elegance influenced a young Zinedine Zidane, and Diego Forlan, who won the Golden Ball at the 2010 World Cup. Luis Suarez carried that tradition into the 21st century, becoming one of the most prolific strikers of his generation. Each era found its own expression of the Uruguayan game, but the thread of technical skill and fierce competitive will never broke. Today, Uruguay continues to punch well above its weight. A nation of roughly 3.5 million people competing at the highest level of world football decade after decade. The country's success is not an accident of geography or luck, but the product of deep institutional roots, a culture that treats the game as a serious craft, and a stubborn refusal to accept that size determines destiny. In Uruguay, football is not just what people watch. It is part of how the nation thinks about itself.